Dyslexia Awareness Week is where we find ourselves, and courtesy of Matt Bird, we are talking about dyslexia. And I want to start with an interesting conversation, and that's specifically about what you were told, Matt, in school, just in way of the reality of dyslexia.
Yeah, well, people with dyslexia, young children in school, they may struggle to read, they may struggle to write, they may struggle to spell, they may struggle with their concentration. In school, in my day, I was put in remedial English classes because I was thought to be backward with my English. The reality is people with dyslexia are no less intelligent than people without dyslexia. People with dyslexia just process information differently. But I remember at school basically being told by my teachers that I was stupid. And so I left school with that belief.
Yeah. And here's the thing, just for those who don't know, Matt Bird, we've interviewed you a number of times before because you've started a multinational organization called NAYAB, N-A-Y-A-B, doing amazing work. You've written books. You've been somebody who's influenced your local community politics and so forth and so on. So this guy is not just a lazy bum who draws, some form of finances from somebody. He works hard. He's a hard worker and has overcome what some would see as a challenge, namely dyslexia.
Yeah. I mean, one day somebody turned to me and said, Matt, you've got a book in you. And today I'd like to turn to you, if you're listening, and say, you've got a book in you. I didn't know where to start. I've now authored 20 books. And each year I coach more than 100 people to write, publish, and launch their books. So if you're listening to this, just as somebody once upon a time said to me, you've got a book in you, I want to say to you, if you're listening now, you've got a book in you. And it doesn't matter what barrier you might think you have, you can overcome it. And I've developed a step-by-step methodology for helping people overcome their obstacles to write the book that is within them.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, Matt, earlier when we were talking about Dyslexia Awareness Week, you touched on something very poignant and very topical, and that is the education system that is typically found in the Western world. I can't really speak about other countries like China and that, but I do know for a matter of fact that there's very much a cookie cutter approach to education. Even in South Africa, where we expect children to excel on all levels. We expect children to memorize, and then regurgitate. And that shows, wow, that student is a great student.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to draw a distinction here, Jonathan, between teachers in the classroom and leaders of education. I think teachers in the classroom do an amazing job to help children. And I want to thank you, especially if you're the sort of teacher that comes alongside children who are struggling. However, if you're a leader of the system is broken. It's ignorant to think that the only measure of intelligence is to read, memorize, and regurgitate in an exam or an essay. It's absolute nonsense. I'm not saying that's not clever. It is very clever, but it's not the only way to show you're clever. It's a little bit like opening a shop and only selling one size of clothes. You're bloody stupid. Yeah. So, why should the school system be the same? Why should it be one way of learning? We need to develop a diversity of engagement with young people to help them learn.
That's it. And I once again want to highlight that you as a parent might feel, well, I'm never going to be an influencer with regard to the education system and the leaders of education. But you are already an influencer of your children. Hey? And I mean, that is so powerful how we as parents can nurture our children and help them.
Yeah, it's really important for you as a parent. If you have a child with dyslexia, of course, you love them to bits. I mean, that's a given as a parent. Yes. But it's really important that you make sure your child knows that their dyslexia is not a disadvantage, but actually it's their advantage in life. It's not a curse, it's a blessing. It's not a problem, it's a benefit. Dyslexia is a God-given gift.
Sure, that is so on point.
And I think also people really need to be educated about what dyslexia is and also how to help a child with dyslexia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the differences between people with dyslexia and without dyslexia is they say that dyslexic people think in pictures,
Yeah.
and people without dyslexia think in words. So if you have a child with dyslexia, help them think in pictures. And what's really amazing is all the research says that if you can think in pictures, you'll think thousands of times faster than if you think in words. So if you're a person with dyslexia, actually you can think super fast, and
Yeah.
that is part of your superpower.
That's it.
That's good.
So again, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to education, remember it starts at home, and each child, sadly, is not born with a manual, but each child is most definitely unique, and it's our role as parents to discover those unique gifts, talents, and abilities within your children, and to love and encourage them. And again, to remember that the world has sadly been set up very much from an education point of view of, well, there's one way to learn and to grow and to be excellent. And we need to start pulling that apart, and helping our children to understand that they can be. I think that's also the beauty, hey, Matt, of the new modern age with regard to technology and the advancements of technology and the abilities and the things like that that are highlighted, where you can be an expert, never have to work in a kind of corporate environment, but you can still be an expert. You can be brilliant working from home and making a real difference in this world. Hey,
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to say that there's research that shows that there are that the number of entrepreneurs who are dyslexic is much higher than in the population. So, for example, in the United States of America, 35% of company founders, entrepreneurs, identify as dyslexic, when there's only 15% of people who identify as dyslexic within the population. So it's significantly greater. So this is another expression of that superpower of dyslexia, because people with dyslexia are phenomenal ideators, problem solvers, innovators, entrepreneurs. So we need to wake up and recognize that dyslexia is a gift and a superpower, not a problem and a disease and an error of God's design.
yeah, exactly. As we start to wrap up, Matt, just kind of in final thoughts and in processing, it's good to know, but don't let the label define you. I found out, and I just want to share this again for those who maybe missed it. I found out later in life that I struggle with dyslexia. In primary school, I would struggle. If I had to write out the word definitely, then I'd have to sit and think in my mind, and I'd had the picture of a bed, and on top of the bed, I'd write the words BED, or the letters BED, so that I would be able to figure out which is the B and which is the D. And then definitely starts with the D. So, okay, it's the one that faces that way, and that was the way I had to deal with it. I was never formally diagnosed by a doctor, but I figured it out later in conversations and in doing interviews about dyslexia. And I realized, like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, because I struggled with reading. I struggled with writing, although I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved creative writing, but I struggled because of dyslexia.
Yeah. And I still can't spell definitely, so I've learned something today, Jonathan.
Oh, you're welcome. And here's the scary thing, Matt. This is also a true story. I'll never forget it. Coming back to work from our honeymoon. So I'm talking about the year 2007, 2005, yeah, when Renelle and I got married, and we went on a beautiful honeymoon, and we were out of the country, as a matter of fact. And because of that, I really disconnected from technology, from work, from all that stuff. And when I came back, the one day I was sitting at my desk, and I had to write out the word and. And I was like, how do you spell and?
No.
A 3-letter word.
Yeah. I mean, I also struggle with phone numbers, Jonathan.
Really?
I bought a phone number that I could remember, 074441112, because I couldn't remember my phone number. So there's silly little things like this.
Exactly.
You know what? These things, they're not the most important things. We can achieve amazing things, not despite dyslexia, but because of dyslexia. You know,
That's
we
it.
must change the way we think and speak about dyslexia and other neurodiversity to understand that actually we don't suffer with dyslexia. Society suffers because of its lack of understanding. And in school, in churches, in the workplace, in society, we need to find ways of being more inclusive of people with diverse learning styles and learning approaches. We must never call dyslexia a learning disability, disorder, or difficulty. It's a learning difference.
That's it.
It's simply a different way of learning. And I think the workplace is more advanced in this than schools are. And the reason I'm speaking out so loudly and clearly about this week is I really want to see reform in education. You know, let's stop tinkering at the edges and just making little improvements. It's not enough. The system needs reform, and that's what I'm calling out for this week.
Definitely. Well done. And thank you for taking a stance against this. And I'm mindful of the fact that within South Africa, we have a high school dropout rate, especially in high school, where kids are just saying, you know, this ain't for me. And they're leaving school at grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, and even worse as it gets higher. So we need to re-look at this. Matt Bird, always great chatting to you. That's where we're going to park the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to find out more about Neighbour and the work of Neighbour, where do they go?
They go to nayba.org, neighbour.org. If they want to find out about publishing a book, go to publish.com, publishu.com. And I would love to connect with you, either about helping your church transform its community or helping you write, publish, and launch a book globally.
There we go. Matt Bird, always great. Thanks so much for your time, buddy.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
God bless.
Bye.